Welcome, everybody. My name is Brad Ascar. I'm the field product manager for CloudForms, and with me is Rich Jerrido. I've been in the industry a few years, as you can see by my picture and by my shape. And, I've been in IT, I've been in small startups, big startups, I've been in all kinds of operations. And my co-presenter here is Rich Jerrido.
All right, I'm Rich Jerrido. I'm the technical marketing manager for Satellite. If you've seen any of my Satellite presentations this week, you've probably met me. You're there at the booth. I primarily focus on field enablement, high-touch customer things with Red Hat Satellite. So I'll be assisting today in some of the Satellite portions of this presentation.
So, give you a little history. Why the title? And the answer is why are you in this session? It's a good way to make sure that you have a large room and people show up for it. Also, if you're responsible for security or compliance in your organization, this is an important topic for you, and you're in the right place if that's why you're here. I'll give you a little history on CloudForms and how do Red Hat CloudForms and Satellite help out with this. So a little history on Red Hat CloudForms, in case you're not familiar with it. It's Red Hat's cloud management platform. It was part of an acquisition of the ManageIQ company back in 2012. Like everything else that Red Hat does, they made a commitment at the time to open source the product, and they did. It took about 18 months to get that done. And it was a lot of work to make that happen, but we've got a thriving community now in the ManageIQ.org community. It's version 3.2, but it's really like the 8th major version. There's been different version numbers, right, for what it was at ManageIQ, and then now in Red Hat. And we've got customers in every major sector. So some customers that we can't even talk about that are using it in a lot of really neat and interesting ways. But pretty much if it's a large segment, we've got customers in that segment that are really using this to its full advantage. Little walkthrough through CloudForms. So again, it's our award-winning cloud management platform. Talks to your virtualization environment in-house, like Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, VMware, Microsoft SCVMM. Also talk to OpenStack and Amazon Web Services. And we give you a single point of view of all of those environments and give you a consistent way of interacting with all those platforms. We abstract the complexities of those so that you have one way of working. For this talk, this isn't just a pure demo on CloudForms. For this talk, we're going to cover a couple items, specifically in the inventory and how that plays in. So a large part of what happens inside of CloudForms is we know what's running inside of your cloud. Not just the containers, not just where they're located, what their reference numbers are, how much disk space they're taking. We actually know things like the users and groups that are sitting inside of these workloads. We know things like configuration parameters, things like init processes and that sort of information from there. We also know other information about the actual executables within your environment and whether or not, and that comes into play with some of the other features. We also know all of the relationships. So we know the relationships up and down, where it sits and where it is on the infrastructure, but we also know things like relationships of the genealogy. Where did this system come from? Did it come from a template or was it cloned from something? So that we know if you find some sort of problem or a vulnerability somewhere, what is the scope of that problem, because you know where it came from and what its lineage is. And then we do all of this under one view. So this is what I call my United Nations view. This is out of my lab, and it basically has pretty much one of everything that we do. All the hypervisors are covered. So if you look in the quadrants of these icons, upper left-hand quadrant is the operating system that the system is running. Upper right is the power state. Bottom right-hand corner is number of snapshots if it's a VM. If it's something like a host, it's the number of VMs on the host. And bottom left-hand corner is the hypervisor platforms that it's running on. So we run all these platforms. We give you an easy visual way to see where these things are located. So the overview, why is this important? This information is important because cloud management platform should actually give you a full picture of what's going on in your data center. And you want to see what's inside of the container. And sometimes that's more important than what's the fact that you do have things running, is what's running inside of there. And being able to detect the problems is really very crucial. So the challenges CloudForms helps with is things like host configuration, so making sure that within your environment, your hosts haven't been modified in some way. A lot of people don't give a lot of thought into their hosts because they go up, it's kind of a one-time event, and then they're not really looking at them unless there's some sort of problem. But it could be a problem if people are changing things or something has done something malicious and you don't know that that's going on and your hosts have been configured in a different way. Same things with VMs and instance configuration, and also to be able to do things like standards. If your company has standards or you have best practices, maybe industry or regulatory concerns, you can know what the state of these systems are. And it's important because of security, prevention, remediation, and reporting within security. Also fiscal. If you have fiduciary responsibilities within your company, then it is really important for you to know what's running out there because you're signing on the line that you know what's going on in your environment and that you're taking the proper steps to secure yourself. So key technology within CloudForms is called Smart State Analysis, and it's really kind of the key to all of this. Smart State Analysis is part of the patent portfolio that came from ManageIQ, and it allows you to collect a deep level of information about the systems. And you do all that without having an agent. And that's really a big key to this is you don't have to have an agent. You don't have to deploy things on systems. Within that, the kind of data that you want to be able to get is things like application file versions, system contents, file contents, system settings, init processes, registry keys, anything that's on that disk you want to be able to have access to. And then we take that data that we collect and store it in a database, and then it's versioned and comparable. Now, the way that we do this is in a similar way that like a disk backup vendor would do, and that is actually get the raw disk. Once we have the raw disk, we can forensically go through that disk. You can configure Smart State within your environment to gather whatever it is that you want. If you've got something in your deployment processes that put out a signaling file of some sort, maybe there's a file that's always in a certain location that has your department number or project code or something else. Or maybe you're interested in things like resolve.conf, like is somebody messing around with your DNS settings and pointing things where you don't want them pointed. And there are other files, of course, maybe database configuration files or configuration files for things like firewalls and things like that. So we can gather whatever it is that you want, as much or little data as you need to be able to really have the information that you want on hand. Smart State Analysis has platform support on Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, of course, VMware and OpenStack. On our future roadmap, and work is going on Microsoft SCVMM, Amazon AWS, and also in containers. A lot of people are thinking, hey, wait, I've got a configuration management system, like that helps me know all these things about the systems that are in my environment. And it does, to a point, but what if it hasn't phoned home? What if that system is disconnected in a way because the NIC is damaged inside of the hypervisor platform? So the disk is still sitting there, and you might have some sort of problem, and you don't have it. Hasn't been turned on in 3 to 6 months. Still sitting in your environment, still something that somebody could turn on. So you've done all your remediation, and now you've got these things that are sitting there that are unpatched, and maybe also out of their configuration management profiles, and they're no longer coming back in. Maybe it can't currently boot. The problem is when these things are sitting in your environment, somebody might come along and fix it because they access something that they used to have access to. And now they've fixed the boot and out boots, or they've added the NIC and now it has the NIC, or they moved it from one place to another and now it's on the proper network and can start talking. So you're probably going to say CloudForms is the way that we're going to take care of this. And I'm going to say that. Combination of the following can really help in these situations. Combination of Smart State Analysis, because we know the data that's there. Compliance, which is one of the features within the product. So whenever we do a Smart State Analysis, generally we recommend you also run a compliance report after that. It's a triggered event, you do a Smart State Analysis, you run a compliance report. Within the product, you have the ability to say, here are the things I care about, here are the settings I need to make sure are okay. Maybe something like root logins not permitted. Maybe it's location of files. Maybe it's other things that you're really interested in. You have that as part of your compliance. As soon as it's scanned, falls out of compliance. It's then marked as a system not in compliance. System not compliance can then have policies that say things like, you can't turn this on, you can't move the system. Maybe you want to move it to quarantine. Depends on your rules and what you've done in your environment and how much automation that you want to do with this. We can also do automation. So if the problem is a compliance problem that's something that can be scripted or taken care of, then rather than just sending a message to security saying, hey, we found a system that's out of compliance, it'd be nice if you could actually do something, execute an automation, and that automation go ahead and take care and remediate whatever's going on in the environment. You can also do tagging on it so that you can tag it and have it showed up in views for maybe the security team or maybe some sort of audit team, and also for reporting, so you can get good reports and you can know, as somebody running an infrastructure, that everything has been smart stated, everything has been scanned, it's all in compliance based on where you are right now, and you have a report maybe that comes out every Monday that says everything in the environment is okay. With policies and profiles, it really breaks things down into real small chunks, and that's really the key to this. Trying to figure all of this out all at one time with some very large scripts is a little hard to do. So what we do is say, you apply the policy profiles, and you take care of these things with policy chaining so that you can do things like you can watch for certain events. So in this case, we're going to take a move. Somebody's moved something from one place to the other. We detect that within the cloud management platform. Based on that move, we know there's been a change. We trigger the change. Based on the fact that there's a change, we trigger the smart state. Smart state then runs a compliance, and then maybe it fails compliance and we do some sort of remediation. We set an SNMP trap to your NOC, whatever it is that you want to do for remediation. Maybe you reach over and tap Satellite and say, hey, Satellite, go take care of this for me. Give you an example of how this came to play. When Shellshock came out, very shortly after the vulnerability was out, in the ManageIQ community, someone asked, how would we take care of this? And in a very short time, someone created the filter to show how to determine what this is in the environment and what is my exposure within the environment to this. Once that was done, our customers were able to take that, quickly scan their environment. They knew the size of the problem that they had, including things like appliances that they weren't under configuration management of any kind. It's some sort of vendor's private appliance, and they now know that that problem's there. They can contact those vendors. So they identified the impact, started appropriate remediation. They provided the reporting. A lot of organizations told me it was really good to get a report almost immediately. It said, we've got this size problem, and we think the estimation of the time to fix this is X. Sometimes the time to fix it, depending on what they were doing, was quite quick. Sometimes it was much longer, including all of those systems that were not under configuration management. And then they found issues. They did some shutdowns, and they also found, like I said, the generic appliances. CloudForms and Satellite. So the power of the two combined with CloudForms 3.2 and the stuff that's in Satellite 6.1 really allows us to do some really amazing things. I'm really excited about the direction we're going in integrating these products. Both of these products belong to the same business unit now within Red Hat, so it means that we're driving things together, and our product managers are working really tight to get features working together and make some things that, while they're easy, we want to make it even easier. We want a real easy button. We now do bare metal provisioning via Satellite, which is another feature that just helps out. And then Satellite can do the remediation, and some new features in Satellite really help that out. And again, the other thing that CloudForms could do, depending on the platform and what we're doing, we could also install the agents into systems that you might not have access to. You might need to be able to get in and through some of the platform capabilities, actually inject maybe the agents that you need to talk to your configuration management system. And we can do that, even if it's disconnected, has a damaged NIC, or whatever's going on in there. Turn it over to Rich.
Thank you. So I'm going to discuss some of Satellite's capabilities and the capabilities around Arata management. So in Satellite 6.1, one of the things that we focused very heavily on was making it very easy for you to address the zero-day problem, right? And that zero-day problem can be something such as a vulnerability, such as Shellshock, Heartbleed, Ghost, or whichever next one comes out next month. Or it can just be a zero-day problem, such as I'm having a critical issue with a system, I'm on the phone with Red Hat support, and I need to roll out an Arata ahead of my normally scheduled patch cycle. So with Satellite 6.1, we give you the ability to easily report on that prior to promotion, prior to you releasing that Arata in your environment. And then we also provide detailed reporting from an Arata management perspective, allowing you to see very quickly what packages and Arata do I need on my systems and how quickly can I get them out. So one of the things that's really important, and this is really something that we're using to help drive the automation inside of CloudForms, is really understanding the two ways that we classify Arata, okay? The one classification we have for Arata is something called applicable. That is, if you are a system that's known to my satellite, I can tell you exactly what you need. It doesn't matter what channel you're subscribed to, what content view you're using, what repository you're using. We know as long as you're registered, we know what you need, okay? And then the next thing that happens after that is we have a classification called the installable classification. The installable classification is you actually have access to a repository where those RPMs are and you can actually install them, okay? So when we look at how we drive that into CloudForms and give CloudForms the ability via a compliance policy, we very easily can do something such as, we identified that this virtual machine is vulnerable to Shellshock, right? We do that through a smart state analysis. We then kick it over to Satellite and say, hey, Satellite, I found this virtual machine that has this host name. It's vulnerable to Shellshock. How can we remediate it? We ask Satellite to say, well, I can remediate it, but I don't have that RPM published yet. And then we can kick off another API call to publish that RPM and then apply it as well, okay? So you can have it so that, you can do the first wave of fixing Shellshock, and then if somebody powers up a VM 2 months later, all of this just happens automatically. So to take a look at this inside of Satellite UI, what you'll see is you'll see the Arata on the left-hand side, by their normal Red Hat Arata number, their names, what types they are, and most importantly, the count of how many Arata are applicable versus how many Arata are installable. So if we go ahead and take a look at that a little bit further, if I go ahead and pick an Arata, I can, drill down on a repository on a specific Arata. Just wanted to give you a closer view of that. We can go ahead and we can look at that Arata and we can see the various types of, various things about the Arata, the details, what's the actual problem that we're going ahead to address. So the key feature in Satellite 6.1, it's probably the sexy feature that I like to talk about, is something called an incremental update, okay? The idea behind an incremental update is this. In your environment, you probably have strict change control policies that state that anything that goes into QA had to have been through dev, and anything that goes into production had to have been through QA. What happens when Shellshock hits, right? I can go ahead and rush everything out of dev and push everything into QA, into production, but I really don't want to do that. I really just want to take what's in production and then just add the fix for Shellshock. So as an example, we have an example here for you Satellite 6 folks who understand what content views are. Effectively, what a content view is a collection of repositories that you make available, that are versioned, that you make available to systems in your environment. So in this example, we have a content view called My Content View. Version 7 of it is available in development, version 4 is available in QA, and version 2 is available in production, right? And as the system administrator, you've done everything you're supposed to do. I got my content versioned, I'm promoted out to my various environments, everything works exactly as designed. What happened when Heartbleed hits? What do you do, right? So if you look at Satellite 6.0, we had a very convoluted process to solve that. What we can go ahead and do is we could take that version 7 content view that was in development, add in the fix for Heartbleed, roll it out to dev, QA, and production. You've addressed your problem. What you've also did was you rolled out version 8, version 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3 to all those environments well ahead of their scheduled change management times. And that's bad. Obviously, you want to just address the one fix that you wanted to take care of. So how do we handle this in Satellite 6.1? What we do is instead of giving you that option, we go ahead and allow you to do a minor revision of each one of those content views. So now you can take that version 7 that's in dev and basically add just the fixes for Heartbleed or Shellshock. Now it becomes 7.1. And repeat the same thing for the QA environment and for the production environment. And this is what we call an incremental update. And you can do this over and over and over and over and over again. So I can actually have, let's say, the day after Heartbleed, Shellshock comes out, then I make it 7.2. And then, 3 days later, those two combine and, meet a friend, and they'll have like Poodle Shock or something. Who knows what they names them, right? But you go ahead and, you have the ability to just address that incremental update. And then with CloudForms, we give you the ability to address that via automation. So it happens automatically. So again, if we kind of walk through that workflow, given a host name inside of Red Hat Satellite, from CloudForms, you'll make that API call out to CloudForms. Tell me what identified Arata is available for that system. If it's available, install it, right? We go ahead and just remediate it. If not, we'll go ahead and we go through that incremental update process. Again, take that 7.0 content view, increment it to 7.1, and then kick off an API call to Satellite to have Satellite apply that. So if we kind of walk through this in Satellite 6.1, kind of walk through the workflow, if I was doing it interactively, I can select that host, select the Arata, then select the host, go ahead and hit the Apply to Host button. Satellite comes back to me and actually tells me, says, hey dude, I would love to apply that Arata, but it's not published yet into your content view, okay? What would you like me to do with that Arata? Well, I want you to do the incremental update. And as you can see, I can go ahead and hit confirm and optionally apply that Arata immediately. And the one thing that's the note about Satellite, and it makes it very easy to integrate with CloudForms, is that one of the design goals of Satellite, which we strictly adhere to, is that every capability that I showed you in these screenshots is exposed through the API, is also exposed through the CLI. Okay, so there's no workflow that I'm showing you here UI-wise that is not able to be completed via the API, and it's via the API we do the integration with CloudForms. Oops. Alrighty. So, right, you take the rest?
Yep.
All right.
So this point was Q&A. Want to take Q&A from the...
Skip that one. I'm sorry.
You skipped right over Q&A. Oh, you didn't want to answer any questions?
I don't want to answer any
He
questions.
doesn't answer. Okay. I'll answer any questions that you might have. Do we have a microphone back there for folks?
Actually, I'll walk the room if anybody has any questions. Anyone? I know it's the after lunch hour. Somebody ask a question.
So any questions?
Any questions? Oh, come on.
Has to be a question somewhere. Right here.
Yeah, boss.
If you're going direct to the patching on a server, do you have the capabilities to say, okay, do other parts of the processing is pre-designed, for example, taking servers out of load balance before you do the patching?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So if we have to do some sort of patching, can we do other kinds of automation around that? Yeah, and that's definitely something you'd want to build into your process. And you could even optionally do it inside of CloudForms based on tagging, based on other metadata that we have. So based on tagging, we might know that the system's within a load balancer, right? So you might have one workflow when systems are in a load balancer and one without. And maybe the one with, when we see that tag, we then execute whatever methods necessary to take it out of the load balancer, put it into a state that's good, maybe check the load balancer, make sure it's actually out, and then start doing the work. And then when we're done, put it back in. And that's really, really something very simple to do, and we would rely on the having tagging taxonomy within the product itself. You could also do other things on systems that would also tell us automatically that that was going on, maybe something that we're looking at from a configuration file or something else that would signal us so that you wouldn't have to remember to go tag something that maybe part of your build process is that these always get some sort of marker file or something, and then we pick that up in a scan and then can use policy to actually tag it for you, so that you don't have to remember to go tag something.
Sir?
On the, I think it was called Smart Scan,
Smart state analysis.
Smart State Analysis. Do you know, that is a direct connection to your, say, SAN storage? Do you know what type of overhead you're doing on that?
Yeah, so from, the question was, with Smart State Analysis, how are we doing this work connecting, are we going directly to the SAN? It really depends on the platform and how it's configured. It's configurable a bunch of different ways. One of the things that we do, and within the product, is actually just a configuration parameter, and that is how many of these can be going on at one time in a particular environment, and you can set up the scans such that you really don't have a major impact. The impact, the way it works primarily, depending on the environment, is it takes a snapshot, then mounts that snapshot to read that. So the impact is not really high. We've got a lot of customers that are doing some very, very large environments. They just make sure that they're doing it in off hours and they don't have too many of these things going on. But it is a design consideration. You got to figure out where these appliances are. Because of the way that CloudForms is architected, you have the appliance itself, you can have multiple of the appliances, and the appliances have different roles. One of the things you can do is have ones that are just doing this kind of work, and you can put those closer, right? So they're closer to the disk, maybe they're on that side of a WAN, maybe they're on that side of some sort of isolation container, so they can do the work closer to where it needs to be, but maybe the rest of the command and control of that region is in a different area. So we try and put those kinds of appliances closer to where the work is actually done. Yeah, so that's a good question, and that's part of the design of how you would really use tagging within the infrastructure. And some people have gone to do tagging and say certain systems are tagged Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D, and to make sure that you're not doing more than a Group A at a time or Group B at a time. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can make sure that you're not really hammering your system. Because if you crank it up high enough, we will hammer your system. If you change all the defaults to really high, we will read as fast as we can to get all the data that we're being asked to get. Another question here?
Is there any form of reporting in satellite so that it will equate the patch being laid down to like the Arata number that equates to it?
Absolutely. So the question was, is there a correlation between the RPM and the Arata number? Right? That's kind of the core functionality of what a Arata report is. So if you look at an Arata report from Red Hat, right, it's classified in 3 types. You have security, bug fix, and enhancement. And in that metadata, we list these RPMs, this name, version, release, epoch, and arch are updated by this Arata. Okay, so if you have the CVE number, we can search for the Arata that corresponds to a CVE number. If you have the package name, we can show you what Arata provides it. And if you have the Arata name, we can show you what packages are updated.
All right, but is there any kind of reporting? So say these 12 RPMs get updated due to a patch cycle.
Right.
Here's a report that says RPM, Arata number.
So yes, so when you go ahead and you install the Arata and the system history of the host, we show you the Arata that were applied, and we show the RPMs that are updated by said Arata. In the back.
Regarding the incremental updates, content view there, is there a way if you push an incremental update, can you back that out?
Yes, I'll repeat your question. The question was, if I have an incremental update, okay, I make that minor release to a content view, so I say go from version 7.0 to 7.1, and let's say I accidentally did that or did that before my change window, do I have a means to revert a content view promotion? The answer to the question is yes. So if you, I don't have a satellite plugged into this projector, but in the satellite UI, you'll actually see for a content view version, there is a promote button, there's also a remove button. Sir? Okay, so your question was, is there a plan to introduce the incremental update feature into Satellite 5? The answer is no, and the reason being is that they're kind of fundamentally different technologies that power Satellite 5 and Satellite 6, but you can do the equivalent in Satellite 5, okay? So if you're a Satellite 5 customer and you're using you're using clone channels for doing your life cycling, and you get that critical Arata, say Shellshock, Heartbleed, whatever one it is this week, and you want to introduce just that Arata into your clone channel, you can do that via the satellite API. Okay. If you look in the customer portal, there's a document called the Red Hat Satellite Lifecycle Management Guide. Read it. It has an example Python script that'll show you exactly how to do that. Any other questions? Wow, that thing's bright.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you. We've got some additional sessions on CloudForms, and also we've got a Manage IQ, Birds of a Feather, Manage IQ being the upstream community for CloudForms. So these are the ones that are left in here. We're also at the booth. Did not get your next satellite one.
Yeah, the next satellite presentation, there's actually 2 of them. They're both running at 4:50 today. There's a satellite presentation on doing OpenSCAP with Satellite 5 and Satellite 6. That one's being run by Matt Mycini from DLT Solutions. And also at 4:50, myself and my counterpart from Puppet Labs, we're doing Puppet Labs and Satellite 6 integration right down the hall in 311.
Cool. Thank you, everybody. And if there's any more questions. If anybody has any questions that didn't want to ask it out loud, then swing by. We'll talk to you.